Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me again for the first official episode of Onestep podcast. I'm going to start off this episode with a quote from the Tao. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Tao Te Ching, chapter 64. I want to talk about just a little bit about like my philosophy, my post athlete life in this episode, and just like some transformation and some things that help me get through that because the Tao has been very centering and balancing for me in my life, um, and I try to apply the teachings of the Tao in all the aspects of my life that I can. And one of the, I would say uh, I won't say that. I'll say that I've been, uh, I think I would say the first time I read the Tao was when I was 18 years old. When I was 18 years old. And I had read it like a number of times. I mean, I think I would say over 5 or 6 times I've read it. By now I've read it well more than that, but um, I don't think I was able to really actually start putting things into practice until like maybe a couple of years ago, to tell you the truth. Um, Sometimes things are easier said than done. And I think, you know, applying uh, principles to your life can be um, isn't easy to say the least. Um, so I'm going to use the Tao as kind of like the vehicle of the episode today. So um, I'm going to start off with like my athlete life because um, there was just a lot of that's where I had a lot of learning to do was like after I stopped playing uh, college football and for and especially well and especially as an athlete, you know um, like the the well the life of an athlete, especially in organized sports, is one that is really hard to transition out of, no matter what level you're coming from. I think it's a little easier if you're coming from high school compared to collegiate and obviously professional. But a lot of, a lot of kids, struggle with like, the transition from like, being an athlete in high school. A lot of kids playing three sports, you know, all year round, knowing where they're going to be at their schedules and whatnot. And then, you know, you're in that post life athlete life, and there's like, all of the organizing and the coordinating, and even just, searching for, the competitions all falls on you as an athlete. And sometimes that's really, really overwhelming. At least it was for me, just because I felt like, how did I go all of these years, playing organized sports or whatnot, and never take into consideration like all of the aspects it takes to, you know, putting them together or even just participating. Because sometimes it's like, yeah, people feel like, or sometimes, the idea can be that like you um you'll always have those opportunities because you're not thinking about them like long term, you know but the biggest transition for me was like, you know not being in organized sports, which, consumes a lot of your life as an athlete. There's so many things that your life is wrapped around when it comes to those things. It's just like that's your identity. That becomes like who you are. You know, sometimes, sometimes you can get really locked in to the idea of being part of something, right? And some people, right, especially with team sports, they come with so many memories that last decades long, you know, and they happen at such an early age that they last so long. And the hardest thing for me was transitioning from, you know, being like an athlete post organized sports, because all of that became my responsibility. And the biggest thing too that I quickly realized is just like, you know, there's no the access to the gyms, right? Gone. The physiotherapist, gone, right? The access to fields at sometimes feels like gets a little bit more restricted. And I'm just saying that in the sense of like, if you go to college, all of those things are in your immediate world, into your access. When you're outside of that, those things become like bills, right? You got to pay for your physiotherapist, right? You got to pay for someone to check you out when you have an injury. You got to, pay somebody to, etc. Do all of these things. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself when it came to just learning like uh, what what it was going to be for myself being an athlete after the organized sports era. And I was blessed enough to go past high school and play in college football. I played college football in Canada. Um, and that was like so much fun. The only thing I regret is that I didn't take that opportunity more serious. I think that at the time I still took it serious, but like I I think that I should have thought about it more long term. Like I should have tried to be there longer than um, I I probably was thinking, because I only played 2 seasons, right? And one of them, the first season, got cut short because of like a student visa situation. So that was really tough, you know. And that was kind of almost like a transition into like what my life might be like without, the organized sports of college and things like that. So for me in that time, it was really imperative to make sure I stayed in shape. Just because I knew I was going to go back the next year once I got all my papers together, but like I just wanted to stay near the sport because it was good for me. That's where I found my balance. Because all up until this time I had never missed any football, right? So, and I was like a lot of athletes. Football was like my life. There wasn't much, there wasn't many things I wanted to do that didn't involve some type of football in it at some point. Um, yeah, and I think just for me, that's just like what what kind of you know pushed me to finding opportunities to stay in shape or just stay next to football. So one of the things that I picked up after playing collegiate football was flag football, and from like the first game that I played, I was in love. I don't know why I loved flag football so much, but it almost was like felt like a transformation. It definitely was uh, you know, like a realization as far as just like you know, flag football isn't like your traditional football. It's a little faster, more technical, you know. And I learned all of these things like later on I've been playing, because I've been playing since then, since 2018, 2018, 2017, sorry. So 2017 is when I first started playing. And the thing about it is I played football from like 12, right? No, 11 years old, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I played from 11 to 20. I played traditional football, pads, helmet, contact, all that jazz. My position was like skill position, running back, wide receiver, special teams, just to name a few. But yeah, no matter where I went, I always was like, one of a standout athlete, you know. And football was just always one of the things that just kept me centered. It kept me like out of trouble. It also like gave me a lot of things to just to learn when it comes to life. You know, there's nothing in life that happens by yourself. Everything's done through a team or some sort. So, so it's I think it's one of those things that you know you learn real life, you know, in the sport with any team sport. Just to say that, because you have to, there's got to be the coordination, and sometimes emotions are high. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it takes like putting your emotions to the side, because, or maybe not putting them to the side, or using those emotions to alchemize and use them as fuel to play better, play harder. Um, it's really amazing, to say the least. Um, yeah, and after I was done playing football, especially just like tackle football, because like a lot of kids, I wanted to be like in the NFL, but it takes a lot to get to the NFL, and I think it takes a certain amount of investment, not just from yourself, but from parents, coaches, things like that, because the era I grew up was like you needed to get recruited, go to college, right, and then play well in college so you can get looked at. Also just like not just playing, but you had to play amazing. The stats had to be there. You had to, and a lot of times it was you had to go D1 to give yourself the best shot. If I could do it again, I would take my academics 10 billion%, 100 billion% serious, because that could have been a ticket to a different life. And I'm not going to blame my parents or none of that stuff. Those are all decisions I made on my own. And I didn't want to listen to anybody. I just took my own guidance, right? So, um, and there's times where I'm just like thinking about like, damn, I should have, maybe took it more serious. But the point where I'm at right now is just like, I accept where my life has gone. I still have a very, very, very good life. I wouldn't change my life for anything. But sometimes, we get stuck in the what if, right? The what if of my life could have been like this or been like that, and sometimes you just gotta, stop and just reevaluate like what's really important to you. And that's what I had to do. And that's what I did after playing football. Yeah. But with flag football, I took all of that frustration and sadness that I had, and I just put that all into flag football. I learned certain things about myself, like that I could get better at. I could become a better athlete, right? Because up until then, like going to Canada, I was I felt like, and this is how all athletes should be. I felt like I was always one of the most athletic, people on the team. And not that flag football is like not about athleticism, but like I think flag football takes a different type of athleticism, as in the aspect of like you have to expand your athleticism. Like if you're playing flag football, like you're not only just a wide receiver, you're a skill player. So whether you're a skill player that mostly plays offense or defense, any skill player should be ready to play offense or defense when it comes to flag football. I mean, it's not like pads, you know, but football essentially is one of those like it's a skill sport like any other sport. So, but you could become a craftsman in your position, right? You see a lot of wide receivers, they're they're they craft their own styles, and that's what makes them, the best. And they just move through their own authenticity of them. And they also study the greats so that they could see the tendencies, right? They can see, just learning from them. And as an athlete, that's what you're trained to do. And flag football was so cool to me because like I felt like there were no greats of flag football that I knew of, right? So it felt like I was stepping into an avenue where like I could, work on myself and become like, a renowned flag football player. And that was just when I first started. And now obviously they have like the USA ranking system and whatnot for people who play like in the USA sanctioned tournaments and whatnot. But like whoa, I really, really um, like have expanded my repertoire for the things that I was able to do. I wasn't able to play DB before I started playing flag football. If I played if I played DB before, playing this sport, I'd get cooked, you know. And that's just because that just wasn't my focus, you know. When I was younger, I just wanted to be a really good running back, like Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Marshawn Lynch, um, right? Um, what's just like Darren Sproles. Like I used to study all of their films, like when I was young, coming up. And flag football just felt different. Just felt like I can make it my own. I could become something different. I'm not hiding behind a helmet, right? I can be my own person. I could actually kind of like bring out my own personality when it comes to it. And yeah, um, and yeah, throughout my time of like playing flag football, I've had a lot of other transitions too. Um, just like I've recently got married like a year and a half ago. I'd say a little like a year and 3 months or something like that ago. Yeah, like a year and 3 months. Anyways, I also just had a newborn baby like not even 6 months ago. So I got married. We got pregnant very fast, me and my wife, and obviously not me, but you know, it was very fast the transition from like us being boyfriend and girlfriend. Then we got married, and then it seems like our it feels like our marriage has transitioned from like you know a basic committed relationship to a full-fledged family. You know, and obviously me and my wife have been together. Well, it's not obvious to you guys, obvious to me. For me and my wife have been together almost 10 years. So it's been really amazing to just see the growth in that. And to kind of tie all this around, like, just the theme of this episode is like the the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And through all of these things I've, transitioned in my life, you know, from, you know, moving from a new place from an old place to a new city, right? Um, or sorry, from my hometown to a new city, from, you know, being, a non-parent to a parent, which is a it's more than night and day difference. It's quite literal, like, you know seconds to years difference. um and I say that just because there's just way more gap, there's just way more learning, there's way more intention, um for me, because of just like my family planning life has been very intentional with me and my wife. So, um just feeling like, things are been moving fast, and just needing to stay centered, right? Just staying close to myself and not getting like lost and lost in all the ideas and all the complexities of life, bills and whatnot. Like, once my baby was born, like, I felt like a honestly an unexplainable feeling, other than just like pure, like, I felt like my life had purpose, had more purpose than it ever had. And I'm definitely transitioning as like a new father into like a new person, just like individually. And you know no matter how much transition I go through in my life, I just take it one step at a time. And that's kind of like, the whole thing around like One Step podcast is just taking it one step at a time. And as you guys will see, and as you learn my philosophy, you guys will also be able to see how I operate. Just like, I just take things one step at a time. You know, there are times when it feels like the steps that I'm taking are going really fast, but I'm always I'm always coming from a place where I'm just like centered and trying to stay as balanced as possible. And even thinking ahead, what things could possibly throw me off balance and what possible things can put me back on balance. So right now, I'm definitely like, you're gonna see a transition from me, you know, as these podcast episodes, you know, transform, and I get more episodes out underneath my belt. I will be able to show you guys better, because my biggest thing was like, this is just for my personally, just like my own personal, uh, just like a rule, a law for myself, I guess you could say. It's just like, I'm never gonna stop moving, right? If I need to go slow, I'll go slow, but I'm never going to stop trying to progress. And I think that it was very empowering, for me to just, live my life on my own timeline, and not in a way that feels like I have to appease anybody else. I'm just living my own life in the way that I need to, so I can be fully present in this moment, because this is the only moment that really matters. So, yeah, man, I really am happy that y'all are joining me for this journey that we're all taking, right? Because you're gonna see parts of me that, like, that aren't about just, philosophy. I'm a regular person just like anybody else. I love music, I love reading, I'm a nerd, I love anime and manga. So, like, there's all types of things that I'm going to be discussing on this podcast, you know, and interviewing really eccentric people that I love. So I think that the biggest thing for me is to just maintain, taking one step at a time. And I hope that you guys are resonating with my message. And I hope that you guys take this journey with me as well, because, I'm only going to get better with this shit, and I'm only going to come up with new ideas. More creative ideas to, push this podcast to wherever it needs to go. But yeah, I appreciate y'all for joining me for the first official episode of Onestep Podcast. If you were feeling me, please please subscribe. And you guys have a great rest of your day, night, whatever time you using. I hope it's amazing. So, 1,